good afternoon, good morning, good evening from wherever you're watching this. My name is Abiodun Jinodio, and I'm on this conversation with my friend here, Walter. And we're having a conversation this afternoon in Lagos on a topic that I think is almost lost in Nigeria's history, which is about the 1966 coup that took place, on the 15th of January 1966, the first ever coup in Nigeria. And the actors, I think about five majors. And so this afternoon, we are delving deep into the story to understand what really happened, who were the actors, how do we describe the action that took place, and then also see if we can draw out a few lessons from that story. So hi, Walter.
Hi, Abiodun.
It's good to have you here. We've been discussing
Thank you.
this for about how many years? 3 years plus now.
Yes.
I'm happy that we're having this conversation so that this story is not lost
Mhm.
in the annals of Nigeria's history. And
Mhm.
although a few people know about it, it's important to have the full picture of what really happened. Uh, so Walter is the professional forensic consultant, and I'm an HR professional. Okay, so
Thank you. Thank you.
all right, so but to start this discussion, it's important to set the context for this, and you, you could just correct me if I'm wrong, but I
Mhm.
think from before independence, Nigeria's independence,
Mhm.
the British set in motion a tripartite system of government. In other words, there was a north before it was north and south, but then
Yeah.
the south was split into east and
Into
west.
West.
So there was the north, the east, and the west, and there was a premier for each of those regions that was governing those regions, and there were some certain parties for the north. There was the Northern People's Congress led by the Sadan of Sokoto,
Mhm.
Alhaji Amadu Bello.
Okay.
There was also in the east the National Council of Nigeria and Cameroons.
NCS.
Yes, NCNC led by Dr. Nnamdi
Not as
Azikiwe.
cool.
And in the west there was the Action Group
Yeah.
led by
Akintola.
uh, Akintola, but before then he was chief
Awolowo.
of Afemi Awolowo. And so from the beginning, we could see that there were three different regions. They had different ideologies. The British sort of favored the MPC and the North because you know during Uthman Dan Fodio's conquest of the North, the war that he started there, and he put in motion this emirate system of government,
Mhm.
and which set up emirs to lead the people, and it was sort of feudalistic in nature. It was some people even think it was an oligarchy, and so there were a few people that had the power, that had certain interests that were at the helm of affairs, and then the rest, the people that are in the region was not they were not easily they couldn't access the emir easily. It was just typical feudalistic system, and that favored the British because it made it easier for them to carry out the indirect rule. But in the east and west, it was a different story. Yes, there were obas, there were obese, but the people still had a say. It wasn't a totalitarian, system. So the British thought that the South, and this is based on facts,
Yeah.
thought that the East and West, also which is the South, before they were split,
Mhm.
that they were a bit stubborn and opinionated and everything, as at that
Mhm.
time, really.
Mhm.
So they sort of favored the North, and the way they divided the nation, at that time, the North was huge, 50% or more than 50% of the whole population. And so because of that, were you fighting? See, people were not, the North didn't trust the East and the West. The East and the West didn't trust the North. The North had many times threatened to secede from the country if, leading up to independence, if the East and the West decided to form a government. So
Mhm.
what happened? Let me just run through the story. Independence, the NCNC decided to go into a coalition government with the NPC,
Okay.
and then the AG became the opposition party. So Chief Obafemi Awolowo had to leave his position as the premier of the West to become and also the leader of the party, to become the leader of the opposition government. And then Samuel Akintola became the premier of the West. And then there was, because Akintola, based on stories and based on history and facts, sort of favored the NPC,
Yeah.
aligned a bit to their way of government. But
Mhm.
Obafemi Awolowo did not really agree
Agree
with
to that.
with that system, because Alhaji Tafawa Balewa sort of brought that feudalistic system of government from the north into the central government. And there were elections in 1964, I think, or yeah,
Yes.
and then in the West, and then it was serious, it was rigged.
Bloody.
Yeah, it was bloody. There were about 16, I think, MPC officials that were returned on the polls. So they were just it was totally rigged, and then the guys were shouting and saying these things are not going well in the West.
Mm.
But the central government did not pay any heed, and they said the West is still fine. And which they led to the Operation Words here, where
Mm-hmm.
setting people ablaze, fire, rioting, looting, arson in the West, particularly in Ibadan. And this is where the coup, this is the context for the coup because the soldiers were involved. They
Yeah.
saw everything happening.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they were deployed into these places to even quell some of these riots that were happening. So they saw firsthand the repressive government, the things that were happening, the corruption, the desire for each region to only tend to their own interest and not the interest of the entire whole, of the whole.
Mm-hmm.
They saw firsthand, and so this is what birthed this idea of the coup. Let's take over. The coup was originally to just take over leadership and from these quote unquote corrupt people and let us bring in a much more representative government. That was the desire and intention of the guys that started the coup. Again, based on facts.
Mhm.
But as it turns out, people died. The coup was a bit bloody, of course, not as bloody as the counter coup.
Mhm.
But then people died, of course. People were killed. The Sadano of Sokoto was murdered. Alhaji Tafawa Balewa, Mr. Chief Lado Akintola, Okotiebo. So senior officers in the country were murdered, and I think they had good intentions. We're going to get into that, but it turned out awry.
Mhm.
So I want to ask you my first question. What do you think about the school plotters, and do you think that their actions were justified by their intentions, or their actions totally discredited their intentions?
Okay, thank you. And again, thank you for the opportunity to speak about a man I've come to respect and love so much for, I don't know, maybe more than 22 decades, over 2 decades of my life. I think
That's
as a child,
Cardinal
yes,
Nzeogwu. Yeah.
Nzeogwu,
Mm.
right from primary school, actually.
Mm.
I will just quickly touch slightly on, the
Cool.
background, on the
Yeah.
context, then before I talk about the
Mm.
coup and then the ideology. So, o- in addition to a lot of the things that you've said, we must also remember that by this time, Awolowo was already in a Calabar prison. He had
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
charged for treason
Yeah.
and was sentenced to,
10 years or
10
so.
years.
Yeah.
Yes, 10 years. And, the whole infighting and as it was documented,
Mm.
Akintola's partnership with the MPC at the material time,
Yeah.
the Premier Tafawa Balewa,
Yeah.
and the Sadwana and Co.
Mm.
And so there were a lot of infighting. More than 2,000 people had died in the southwest.
Mm.
They were, like we talked about, the wet here. And
Mm.
so ideally, now the next question then comes, how then do we rescue this country?
Mm.
Ask yourself, for instance, what is happening today? What is in vogue today is, in quote now, social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is how the youths, we tried a 2020 protest.
Mm-hmm.
Things didn't work out,
Yeah.
the way it was
Yeah.
supposed to
Yeah.
be. And then, so it's been more social media and slight protests here and there.
Yeah.
Now people are talking about accommodation.
Mm.
I'm trying to give you a context of what, or things that, or should I say, ploys that people used at various times in their own, should I say, existence. Before this coup, and I was doing my research, there had already been 2 coups in Africa,
Mm.
in Egypt and in Sudan. I forget a bit of the detail. But I also know that there have been coups even before now, before then. And now we talk about these soldiers, and we have to talk about the character of these soldiers at the material time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't forget that these soldiers were there was what they call the Nigerianization of the Nigerian army.
Yes,
they had it.
yes.
Before it was the royal,
Yes.
royal,
Something royal queen, something.
yes, the royal, I think, but Queen
Yes.
RAF, something like that. But soldiers had to start coming in. So these soldiers were people that, and this was a young country,
Mm-hmm.
and these were soldiers that largely were more. They didn't think about the money. They didn't think about what they were going to benefit, and they were more about how do we get things right.
Yeah.
In a democratic government that is this porous, that is this corrupt, there was don't forget the election of December 12th, 1959. Things had gone on. This same rigging that happened, just as we know it today.
Yes.
Control A, Control C, Control.
It's been happening for as long as we can remember. Yeah.
Yes. So it's the same thing happened in 1959. The Western Parliamentary election of 1964. Same thing happened again. So, and in his words, for instance, Nzeogwu, it was only force that could take this or quell this continuous, should I say, corruption, this continuous circle of corruption.
Do you think, sorry for cutting you, but do you think that thinking was from a place of was because it was a soldier? That a civilian would probably not think like that.
Civilians were protesting and were calling out to soldiers to assist. The sad part was that at the material time,
yes, I remember I read something
soldiers
like that.
Were also in cahoots. In fact, I don't know, it's just because of time. I would have read from this book, this account of, by the way, this Madibu's book, where he talked about the Sadwana. You know who the Sadwana is? There has been no other Sadwana again. Sitting down in the sitting room of the brigade commander of the Nigerian army in the north, Adam Olegu, at the material time. Sitting down. So there was this officer, he headed the Midwest at the time, just shortly after the coup. And he had gone to see Adam Olegu to get something from him. And he saw this big allergy sitting down inside Adam Olegu's parlor. And he didn't bother, he just continued doing what he was doing. And by the time Adam Olegu came out, he said, "Oh, please meet the Sadwana of Sokoto."
So the army was being politicized.
Yes,
at that time.
It was being politicized. Adam Olegu wanted to become the GOC.
What's GOC?
General Officer Commander of the Nigerian Army.
Yeah.
And don't forget, I talked about the Nigerianization of. So the British were going, and they were to hand over.
Yeah.
So he did everything, and according to records, that to make sure, and he even talked about it openly. Based on things that were happening. So if there were riots in the West, he would go, they would send soldiers there, and he would, send battalions and co. Long story short, Ironsi took that position based on the recommendation of Mail
Mary, okay. Yeah.
Okay. So soldiers too. And are we saying that all the soldiers were clean? No.
No.
Based on what they did, and to your question of
was this coup
justified? Was it justified?
Yeah.
In their time, it looked like the only sensible thing to do. Now, you ask yourself.
Because the people in power were already sort of corrupt.
Too corrupt.
And the army, which is supposed to be a bastion of integrity in the nation, was already being politicized.
Politicized as well. The army is always apolitical. They are not. They cannot appear to take sides.
But in this case, the powers that be were so powerful.
Yes.
And powerful because they were protecting their own regional interests.
Exactly.
Not of the nation as a whole.
Not the nation as a whole.
This is based on facts.
Yes.
They were already politicizing the only part of society which should be the bastion of integrity, which is the army.
Exactly.
Okay. I understand.
So at the time where coups were looking like, in quotes, the norm, don't forget that immediately after that January 15, 1966 coup, the Ghanaian coup of February 24, 1966, also occurred almost immediately.
Yeah.
The question you then ask yourself is, if it is, it wasn't. So it looks like it is not. If you say it is not justified, or if it was not something that they should have done, we then ask ourselves, in places where it was successful, what then happened? Look at the story of Ghana, J.J. Rollins, 1979 and 1981, and forget the economic. Regardless of the economic challenges they may have,
did
he changed the country. Yes, it did.
When I think about the story, I find myself in a, like P.S. Manga used to call it, a moral quandary, because I see. I mean, we're gonna get to Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogwu very soon. I see the intention. Again, when you read Ademoyega's book, he explained the intention, quite socialist in nature, what the kind of government that they wanted to, but it was a very representative. They wanted to bring in a representative government. They cared about the nation as a whole. I give it to the soldiers. They were not acting just based on instinct or a desire for power. They really wanted to bring in a Nigeria that they could all be proud of, that cared for the people, that distributed the dividends of democracy. But murdering people, and I read a book, something by I think, okay, it wasn't a book. Jordan Peterson mentioned a story. He was trying to explain what happened and how some of the soldiers during the World War II, why they behaved the way they behaved, particularly the Nazi guys. And he said that in Poland, for example, that there were certain policemen that were dispatched to begin to round up Jews. These guys, they rounded up the Jews, put them into trucks and took them into trains and took them into really, really dark places where, for example, naked women were shot in the back of their heads by soldiers. Now, as a policeman, you saw these things happen and you allowed it to happen, right? In fact, it was said that the head of the policeman told those guys that, see, if you want to go home, you can go home. But for them, these were these policemen, ordinary guys. But they allowed those things happen. He said, but for them, it was more of a thing of it was an experience core thing. That why would we allow our other comrades to do this job while we flee and go to our houses because we don't believe, in what? So it takes a lot for a good person to really become terrible, to become bad to the point where you're killing somebody, right? But I understand a bit from what Jordan Peterson said that, sometimes there are many reasons. They had a reason to go home, but maybe that's the only thing they knew how to do. I don't condone it. If you ask me, I am killing anybody in any dimension is totally wrong. And I think we can agree on that. Yeah. So, but that's the only thing they knew. But could he have gone on any other way?
Okay. Let me say it this way. Think about the Chinese and think about the Japanese. When a politician is corrupt, what happens?
They kill them or something like that, yeah.
Now, I don't personally support the killing of anybody. His soul is too precious. I think, and I was talking to, I think Madibo's son, he's a senior, one of my very good senior friends. And the other, and I was saying, I imagine what would have happened if maybe during the war something happened, maybe he passed on. What would have happened? How would the family have turned out? So I'm just saying that on killing in itself is not the way to go, right? But I always still say this again, that soldiers are trained to do one thing, to kill.
True.
They're trained to defend. When you say defend, you are trying to protect a territory. When things then become corrupt inside, before inside starts eating itself out, at the time they knew it, especially between the 60s, 70s, and 80s, when military coups were rife, that was
the best course of action.
That was almost the only course of action.
They have imbibed that system. It was deep in their ethos. This is the way to go.
How are we going to justify almost more than 2,000 people in the West dying? How are we going to justify that? Prior to the coup. Now, nobody is saying, in the case of Ghana, what happened was he took all these people, they court-martialed them, and then they were killed by firing squad, right? So I'm saying here that it's not something I support.
Yeah, but
I read it, and when I read it, I feel sad.
I cringe that, man.
Yeah, I feel sad. So, but for them, it was more of, this is the only way to go.
Yeah. I remember even during the Biafran War that there are some guys that fled, I think, Enugu. And Ademoye got to go there and threaten to court-martial them if they flee. So it was a soldier's life.
Once a soldier in the war, Black Scorpion, Adekunle Benjamin, killed one soldier, a federal soldier, killed a Biafran soldier. There was no time for court-martial straight to, and then that was it.
But you know, let's talk a bit about the person Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogwu.
Okay.
Which I have found an affinity for. A big I credit that to you. But I think many people don't know about this man. And I read about him. This is like, well, first of all, John, I mean, at 20 years old, I think. First, these guys were very young doing all of these things.
Yeah.
1957.
28, 29.
Yes, it was 29 when he carried out the school. What fascinates me mostly about this man is that if we look at the story of who the person, and I think there's something that we can all learn. While we don't agree, we don't agree. I don't agree with some of the things he did.
Okay.
But as I digged down into the story of this man, there are some things about this man. Is a, and people said it. Obafemi, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo wrote many things about him. Taye Solari wrote many things about him. So they couldn't all be wrong.
Yeah.
And looking at the history, he appeared as a man of substance, a man of that had a moral compass. Tell me, what do you think about Kaduna Nzeogwu?
Honestly, I think the best way to say it is, I think when you know too much about somebody, it then becomes too hard to even start talking about the person and giving in a very short time. But I would say there are people, and some of the things that we've talked about that are they're like comets. You see them once and then that's it. In a generation, they're hard to see. Chukwuma Nzeogwu was, most people describe him as eccentric, positive eccentricity. Eccentric in that he didn't do, as a person, from childhood. He wasn't the kind of child that, he wasn't the kind of person that every child, I'll talk about a bit of, and if you allow me, I'll talk about a bit of, I had the opportunity to visit his family compound.
You told
sometime
me.
in 2022. And I sat with his younger sister, Auntie Susan. And I remember she was telling me something. She said there was this Shua Arab that was passing by their house. And, I don't know, I think around that time, I know Nzeogwu was sick, but later, recovered. And then Susan said, the Shua Arab talked to the father, Mr. James Nzeogwu, and pointed to Nzeogwu and said, this child is a passing child. Don't put your heart on him. To mean that this guy is not the normal child that you have. How do you explain? And please, I don't want to.
If you have to read out stuff,
I want to read out a lot, right? And this is credit goes to Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. He published this book first edition, January 1987. I know there's a second edition. It's available online. Yes. I'll just read. See, so he says, this from page 24. It says, during physical training, Chukwuma would scream and belch out orders at students. He would never tolerate sloppiness nor laziness. He was nicknamed Major for his soldier-like behavior.
As a child.
Now this is primary. As a child, this is primary school. Most of his classmates believed that there was no other place for him to work after school except in the army. One of his classmates, remarking about Chukwuma's unusual habits, said, "How will you view the action of a lone ranger student who regularly ran around the school playing field, 10 to 20 times all by himself and did 40 to 50 press-ups immediately after?" On account of his love for individual events, his friend would refer him as a one-man team. He was not a member of St. John's famous soccer team, but he represented the school in discourse. Okay. So I'll just jump a bit.
No, while you're looking at that, there's a story I heard.
Okay.
About this man. Now we are building up to somewhere because this happened to be the major person, the major that championed this coup, was the front man of the coup. And there's a story that when as a child, his mother came home and she was surprised that the kids are not eating. And I said, why? And I said, it's Kaduna. Kaduna is one of his names. We're going to get into that. It's Chukwuma or it's Kaduna. And I said, why didn't you allow your siblings to eat? He said, Susie is not here. Susie is his sister. So as a child, he said that if all of us start eating, Susie will not eat and will not remain will not apportion the right portion for her. So because of that, his truth is gonna nobody's gonna eat in this house. And his mom said, why don't you just take out Susan's, portion and said, okay. No, I think exactly said okay. And then he meticulously took out the portion for Susan and separated it. So it was that kind of child that was given to right, morality, justice, and fairness.
Yeah.
As a child. He would tell, there's another interesting that would go take me time. Where his dad came home, or his mom came home, I think you know that story.
The James.
Yes, and then saw that there was meat missing in the. This is very, very funny. Meat missing in the pot. And he asked and said, why? Later they found out that it was the one that took the meat. And he said, they lined him and said, who took the meat? And he stepped up and said, I was the one that took the meat. And said, why? He said, I didn't have enough. They beat him. First time, second time, he went to do it again. The third time he went to do it again. His father was surprised. What kind of child is this? And so he saw that the boy was speaking the meat that was meant for adults. And then he was thinking about it. And then one night he went to wake him up and said, look at my offer letter. Look at my salary that I'm getting paid. I don't have enough money, So he used reason, and from there the boy understood. And the boy started to defend his father before his siblings said that, listen, don't worry, dad doesn't have the money. He was that kind of child.
Strict. In fact, I think the best way to say it, and let me quote from Obasanjo again, something very pivotal that happened in secondary school, just when they were about to graduate, right? And I'll be very quick with this, sincerely. But I think I prefer to read out, okay? So it's easier for everybody to understand. So this is, let me just read from page. So I'll just start. So let me just build a context. So in St. John's School, in secondary school, their set was a new school. So his set was the third set in that school. And the first set had graduated. It was 6 years. The second set was supposed to graduate, but they allowed the first set graduated, but they allowed some people from the second set. So imagine you have a set that is 100. They allowed somewhat like the best 10. I remember that story. Best 10 to, write to them. So everybody so second set were next to graduate, right? So Chukwuma's set was third set. They expected that, okay, maybe they'll choose first 10 from here. So everybody practiced. Chukwuma was, and according to what is documented here, he said that Chukwuma he was more of somebody. So Chukwuma's enthusiasm for discipline and proprietary did not, however, extend to his schoolwork. He was weak in mathematics and sciences, but good in what he described as the reading subjects: literature, geography, Latin, history, and religious knowledge. His guardian felt that if he had driven himself as hard as his studies as he did in sports, he would probably have been better than the average student that he was. So he wasn't, that star student, right? And so everybody, first 10 were expecting to join the second set to write the GC at the material time, but it didn't happen. And so in their set, the Reverend Fathers, and these are white,
which were considered to be almost like
gods at the time.
Yeah.
Then took some people from the fourth set, and Chukwuma said no and led the protest.
Yeah.
He led the protest. They expelled all of them. Only for some few weeks to writing the exam, the GC exam.
Yeah.
The fathers now had a change of heart and said, you know what? Everybody come back.
But tell him to apologize.
Tell him to apologize first. Every other person came back except Chukwuma.
Said the priests were wrong.
He said they were wrong. And he stayed on his own at home to prepare for that exam. And as he was preparing for it, unknown to his parents, was also preparing for the army cadetship exam. And he passed both at the same time.
Now, let's talk a bit about, his story from when he was a child, about his stints as a member of the army.
Okay.
But his character and what people said about him as a young person in the army.
Okay.
So I know that some of his colleagues thought he was eccentric, but they also said the same thing. He was a no-nonsense person, loved by many. In fact, Obasanjo said that he was loved and also was feared and respected at the same time. So kudos to Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. He said a lot of things about this man. So his colleagues also said those things, that he was a no-nonsense, he was loved by many, he would crack jokes, he protected the junior soldiers, he loved everybody, he was given to the right things, justice and fairness. What do you say? Tell me about that.
I think it was Ademoyega that described him as someone who tried to have a personal connection with people. He was a humorous person, so he's weird, right?
Yeah.
He was funny. He was broad in his thinking. He knew how to lead people. He
was knowledgeable.
He was knowledgeable about almost everybody. But strictly of four, and if you allow me to say what Chinua Achebe said about him. Now, historians have argued incessantly about the makeup of the January 1596 school and its meaning. It was led by so-called five majors, a cadre of relatively junior officers, whose frontman of sorts was Chukwuma Nzeogwu. Very few people outside military circuits knew very much about him.
Yep.
What I heard, now this is Chinua Achebe saying, what I heard was what his friends or those who happened to know him were telling us. He seemed a distant, mysterious figure. Nzeogwu had a reputation as a disciplined, no-nonsense, non-smoking, non-philandering titular and an anti-corruption crusader. This reputation, we were told, served him well as the chief instructor at the Nigerian Military Training College, now NDA, now Nigerian Defense Academy. Now, this is Chinua Achebe. This is announced, and this is from Dom Katbali. Dom Katbali passed on sometime in 2020, December 4.
Okay.
He said, this is him describing Nzeogwu. He said, a nice, charismatic, and disciplined officer, highly admired and respected by his colleagues. At least he was not in the habit of being found in the company of women all the time, messing about with them in the officers' mess. A pastime of many young officers then. We believe that he was a genuinely patriotic officer who organized the 1966 coup with the best of intentions, who was led down by his collaborators. If we had captured him alive, he would not have been killed. I believe he probably would have been tried for his role in the January 15th coup, jailed and probably freed after some time. His death was regrettable.
I think that's the word that sums it up from patriotic.
Yeah.
It was patriotic.
Yeah.
It was that guy that really believed. And like somebody said, because he found himself at some point in the Biafran War. Because those guys were imprisoned and then they were released,
They were released
during the
the first
Biafra
time.
War. So it was neither on the side of Biafra, neither was it on the side of Nigeria. It was just for justice.
In fact, this record, and this I quote, this is from Maximilian. He was writing letters occasionally to Obasanjo, and he said, imagine a war is going on. Biafra is fighting the federal troops.
Wait,
The Nigerian side.
just to mention, where was Obasanjo at that time?
Obasanjo was in the federal troop. In fact, ironically, Obasanjo and Nzeogwu were very
They were
close
close
friends.
past, but he didn't take part because he went to India.
He went
At
to
that
India.
time, soldiers were always going on courses.
They were going on
you know,
courses
to-
all the time to
compared to
different
now.
countries.
Yeah.
I don't know. So they were going on courses, but Obasanjo and Nzeogwu were like brothers.
Yeah.
So for instance, I give you a small instance. Nzeogwu refused to get married. Why? He knew that this was going to happen. And according to him, he didn't want to bring in a woman to come and suffer. Meanwhile,
So he knew that sort of along the line of it, along the line, he probably was going to lose his life or get involved into something bigger than himself.
His brother said it's well documented that he always saw himself dying on the field during a war, especially this war, right? So when Obasanjo was married to his first wife, Remy, when they come to the parents, they say, "Oh, Nzogwu's father say, please tell your friend to go and get married." Nzogwu say, "Oh, Obasanjo's wife is like she's my wife. So now anytime she cooks, I'll go to eat." Okay. When he gave birth to Yabo Obasanjo, April 27, 1967, Obasanjo was...
You know all these dates, my God.
Nzeogwu was from prison, and there's the letter here, saluting on Sean, right? So I'm just trying to say that he wasn't that kind of person that was given to, this side, this side.
Yeah.
January 13, I don't know if we'll come to that, or if you have any question, I can come to talking about the coup in general. But I was just trying to talk about the character of this person.
Yeah.
He didn't think about all his thoughts were, and Ademoyega had it documented.
Yeah.
And he said, see, this is what I'm going to stay, this is how I am. Based on his Catholic upbringing, based on who he was, you would never see him doing none of all these things, right? Leading even up to the coup, from January 13, when Obasanjo came, I think the question then comes, and I think we've talked about it, was, why didn't you involve Obasanjo? Ironically, Obasanjo, that was, like I said, they slept on the same bed, ate from the same plate and everything. Nzeogwu started that coup, which led to a counter coup of 29 July 1966.
Yeah.
Which then devolved to a war the following year, and was ironically ended by Obasanjo, his friend. January 12, 1970, eventually January 15, 1970. So, in his forward, Obasanjo had it well documented, where he said, it was within 48 hours of returning from India that my best and closest friend in the army sprang a surprise, not only on me, but on the whole country, by leading a coup d'etat that toppled the civilian government of the day. This was on 15 January 1966. So started the first 13 years of military intervention in Nigerian politics. An intervention that nearly ended the national disaster of disintegration through a civil war. As Providence would have it, an action commenced by my friend Chukwuma was ended through my efforts and that of others when we put an end to the Biafra secession, handed over power to an elected civilian administration.
So he could not participate because he had gone to India, and when he
gone
came
to India.
back.
So it's funny. I think I was reading. I forget where I was reading. Somebody said, "Oh, he didn't use Obasanjo. He didn't want to include Obasanjo because somebody said Obasanjo something was a loud mouth or would have exposed them." And I laugh. Obasanjo came back from India January 13. He was an engineering officer, right? And according to him, he said when he came back, Nzeogwu went to the airport, picked him up, dropped him back at home, got him anything he wanted, said, "Look, I'm going to the office, I will send my car. You can take the car and go to anywhere you want to go to." After the coup, and when Obasanjo woke up like every other person, like he said, and It's funny. In his book, My Watch, Obasanjo said, before I went on the India course, I and Chukwuma Kaduna in Nzeogwu, and this is a lesson that we can learn about what I call confidentiality. I and Chukwuma Kaduna in Nzeogwu spoke about every matter under the sun.
But he never mentioned.
But nothing about a military intervention rose up in any of our conversations. One could therefore imagine my surprise when I woke up on the morning of January 15, right? And he went to the office. When he heard everything that happened, he went. Obasanjo didn't believe.
But why didn't he tell him?
He did.
Was it because somebody would think and say, I want to ask you a question now.
Yeah.
I just want to finish on this
Okay.
line of thought. Somebody would think, why didn't you tell your best friend? Was it because you didn't want him to know? Why are you hiding something sinister?
I think the best way we have to look at the character of Chukwuma Nzeogwu. Madibo, and in answering this question, Alex Madibo, in his book, said, on January 10, 1966, Nzeogwu was accompanying Ademoyega to the airport, to go back to Lagos. He accompanied him so at Kaduna Airport. And there at that airport was the one-time governor of the military governor of the North, Hassan Katsina. And at that airport, Hassan Katsina's wife was there. And according to Alex Madiba said, Nzeogwu asked her some searching, rather irrelevant questions, such as, when do you want to give birth to this child? Because I think she was pregnant. How many children do you have? How many children do you hope to have? And asking her some. And according to Madibo, he said that she patiently answered these questions. According to Madibo says that it may have been her, Mrs. Hassan Katsina answered these questions very patiently. Okay, so I can remember Major Nzeogwu in a conversation with Mrs. Katsina at the airport, asking her some searching but apparently relevant questions, such as, when was her baby due? How many children she had and their ages? How many more children would she like to have? And so on. Mrs. Katsina answered these questions very patiently. And it is possible that her answers may have saved her husband's life during the coup that followed 5 days later. All Nzeogwu did on January 15 was to march to Hassan Katsina's house and ask him, in or out? And he said in. He shook hands with him, asked that the officers and battalion that Hassan Katsina had assembled, asked that they join his, and then he went back to brigade headquarters. Now, in answering this question, I think Nzeogwu, and I'm trying to put myself in his shoes. He had answered this question by saying, and I don't know, it's just that I would have loved to read it from here, but he answered this question by saying, apologizing to Obasanjo and saying, look, I would have wanted to involve you in this, but you came back January 13.
It was too late.
It was too late.
We can't shift our deadline, our time because of you.
We had well advanced into this thing. So if I ask you to come, what if you say no? And even if you say you want, there's no other thing I can, because everything has been
every position has
been shared already.
Yeah, so he didn't want that to now cause a rift between him and his friend.
So for him, he said, I preferred to just imagine that you were not around. If I think about it again, he saw Obasanjo more as a brother. That he wouldn't want to involve
in something that would
cost him his own life.
Let me ask you a question, which is a big question now. There's been a lot of conversation around this topic. You know what I want to ask?
I know.
The 15th January 1966 coup, led by Nzeogwu and the other majors, I think about 5 majors.
Yeah.
Was it an Igbo coup to topple the government and institute a new government headed by an Igbo person? Or it was just the actions of young people to galvanize the country under leadership that is more representative?
Straight answer, no. And
people will argue.
Yes.
I have my answer. I know what it is, but I want to find out. Like, give us facts.
Okay. So I would give some context. I'll do my best. to give some context. In giving context, so you are entitled to your own opinion. But you're not entitled to your own facts.
Absolutely. And facts don't care about your feelings.
Facts don't care about feelings or opinion. First of all, just even talking about the person of Nzeogwu, this coup was, with many records I've read, originally conceived by Emmanuel Ajuna.
Yes.
It was originally conceived by Emmanuel Ajuna.
Yes.
Emmanuel Ajuna, for many people that don't know him, if you check your, what's this KG book we used back then in kindergarten? This man jumping, there's this, he was the first
javelin. Yes, jumping over the long jump something. Long jump. That was
Emmanuel Ajuna. Was well grounded in sports.
I remember even in Ademoyega's book too, he was having that conversation from the start with Ademoyega because they were very close.
They were very close. Before, so what they were trying to do was look for like minds.
Yes.
Who. So today it's now widely reported that Nzeogwu was the leader. Why? The moment the coup in Lagos failed, Ajuna ran through Enugu, briefed Michael Opara straight to Ghana. Nzeogwu didn't go anywhere. They said...
Just a bit of context. Why did he fail in Lagos? Just to touch that quickly.
Okay.
Just touch that quickly before move.
Okay. So, the Lagos affair was failed largely because of poor execution.
Yeah. And that was because they planned to take over the north and take over the Enugu and then Lagos.
Okay.
So north was done, which was
Nzeogwu's bread and butter.
Then I think Enugu, right?
So there was Enugu. So there were key installments. So
I'm going to a question, but the Enugu people will say, and in the argument that it was an evil coup, why didn't they kill anybody in Enugu?
This is Michael. This is Adewale Ademoyega.
Yes.
Right?
A Yoruba man.
Okay. So let me go to...
I know the answer.
I know you know the answer.
I know you know
but
the answer. But I want to, because while you are looking for the place to quote, there was an emissary from Cyprus, I think, that was in Enugu at that time.
Yes.
And I did not want to... I think the person who was assigned to Enugu...
Lieutenant Ugochi.
Okay.
Ugochi.
Yeah.
And Lieutenant Ugochi was brought in 14th. On the 14th.
Yes, I remember. And they didn't want to cause an uproar in Enugu by killing Cyprus. And that's a larger problem because you cannot have wars between countries.
The plan was arrest.
Yes, it was arrest. But if they responded in force.
You take them out.
Again. They are soldiers.
They are soldiers.
Yes,
right.
So we don't condone this.
Yes, we don't
agree with it. But we have an idea of why they did this because they're soldiers.
In fact, for them, they felt some people, and it's recorded here, so I'm doing my best to read, so it's not like it's coming from me.
Yeah.
For them, there were some people that were too powerful, in quotes, to be left alive. In quotes, to be left alive.
Let's not mention their names.
No, I won't. I won't do that.
Yeah.
But what I would just say is, now, the planning in the north, they left Nzeogwu to manage the north because they felt it was a harder nut to crack.
Yes.
But in Lagos, so there was Kaduna, there was Lagos, there was Ibadan,
yes,
there was Enugu. Now, so I'm not mentioning names,
yeah.
But I can. So there were politicians in Lagos. You had your Minister of Finance. I won't mention the name.
Yeah.
You had the Minister of Finance. You had the Premier at the material time. They took these people. They arrested them initially. For some of the soldiers, even I myself personally asked questions. So the reason was these soldiers were in cahoots with these politicians.
Yeah.
So let's take out these, for want of a better word, soldier politicians.
Yeah.
Let's take them out too. We'll arrest them. But at some point, things, especially in Lagos, wasn't moving too smoothly.
Yeah.
First of all, in arresting the GOC, it appeared, and as what we'll find today from varied reports, don't forget that at this time, there were documentation of these things were not properly done.
Yeah.
So it's what, for instance, Abiodun says, and then it's what Walter says. But what has been common is that the moment one of them, Pam, was they were about to go and attack his house, someone called Ironsi's house and said, "This is what is
This
going
was
on."
happening. And then
Ironsi stood up, through Kata Bridge and straight to Dodan Barracks.
yes, and that's how they sort of foiled that.
They started foiling that thing.
Coup.
That coup.
Now, let's go back to our big question because we're
Okay.
about to finish now.
Okay.
Okay, so why do you think, based on facts and what we know, it wasn't an Igbo coup?
So, how do you explain a coup that appeared to be ended? If you say it's an Igbo coup, how or why did Igbos end the coup?
And the reason what I'm saying is because after the coup, Ironsi, which is also from the east, came into power.
No. Ironsi was the most senior. It was the GOC.
Sure.
It was the most senior. It was the most senior officer. In fact, in
the army.
In the army.
So since you killed Alhaji Tafawa Balewa,
it was him. And they handed over. It's not that Ironsi didn't just come to now. The parliament led by Michael Okpara voluntarily handed over to the military.
I was going to ask a question, but I will jump it. That way was Nnamdi Azikiwe and all of these things. But let's just jump because
no. I don't. So let's not jump it.
Okay.
For posterity's sake, I would say we won't jump it because again, I continue to believe that he was tipped off. I continue to believe.
Did he have intention to
travel,
capture him or kill him?
Nnamdi Azikiwe was a ceremonial leader.
It was quiet. It was not. It was
not.
It was yes.
It was the what you call the queen. So don't forget that Nigeria at the time adopted the British style of rule.
Yeah, and if you remember during the Coca Commission, I think that it was supposed to, was it Coca Commission or something? It was supposed to take a decision on something, but it was struggling in between the decisions. Should I do this? It was just. It was not.
It was not a risk taker.
Yes,
it was not a risk taker. It wasn't.
It was ineffectual.
From my own, this is my opinion
too. I mean, we respect these people, but just looking at them in the eyes of
these documents.
Yes, and it wasn't. It was a ceremonial.
Yes, but he's well respected.
Of course,
sincerely.
Of course.
In respect of this, he fought for himself, Awolowo and Co. These guys fought for our
absolutely for independence. Yes,
right?
Yes.
So, in the eye of these things that were happening, not much was said about their ruling. Of course, they were not happy about it. But what I do know, and is documented, is that he wasn't in the country when this was happening. Awolowo was in prison.
Yes.
Right. Now, and to your question of if it is an Igbo coup, these soldiers and... Okay, before I jump on this book, these soldiers were not, and it's something I think about. Let's think again about the personalities.
Let me be outside. They were not tribalistic in the way
they were not. Okay,
Nigerians
exactly.
At that time.
At that time,
were
they were not
tribal. Some, the ones that were corrupt, probably they were not even. They were just dancing to the tunes of the premiers and
but
these guys that orchestrated this coup were not tribalistic.
They were not.
They were idealists. They have an idea. They want about how the country should be. They want to bring in fairness and justice and represent the people properly. They had nothing to do with
tribalism at all. If it were their own person, and I wish I could read from this book, where, for instance, Nzeogwu is someone from his own village.
Yeah.
He called police officers to come and arrest him for entering the swimming pool, at the time when, because he thought, I don't know, it's here. Somebody will say, it's my brother. No, not he didn't think about it.
Yeah.
So you will see every time they talk about these guys, they didn't think about Igbo. In fact, Madiebo documents it and said that you were more comfortable as an Hausa man with Nzeogwu than as an Igbo person.
Let's just mention, Madiebo was contemporary with Yakubu Gowon and Otto Negbe.
Who
happens to be the only Igbo man that was killed. Which is one of the reasons why people say it's an Igbo coup. But Madiebo, being a senior person, knew the character of these people and also Nzeogwu.
Yes.
And said that he was more comfortable being, in fact, he was eating foods cooked by Northerners than even we don't have time. Let's just check.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, no problem. But let's just circle around this conversation. I know, because I've gone through that thing too, and we see it online. People say it's an Igbo coup, and then I'm going somewhere with this.
Yeah.
But from facts of history, it has nothing to do with tribalism. It just so happened that Nzeogwu was the only person from Igbo that died.
Yeah.
And so let's also understand that in the army at that time, most of them, I think, were Northerners.
Can I even ask why? Like, can I even say Nzeogwu? So there are varying stories about why Nzeogwu died. Unegbe died, Aton Negbe. One story was that he was in charge of the armory. Madebo disputes this. That he was in charge of the armory, and they had asked for the keys to armory. This is an Igbo man that said, "I won't give you key." So I need you, Abiodun.
Yes.
Let's think about it critically. I'm not giving you key. I can see you are an Igbo man. I'm too happy. Let me open the armory. No, he said no, and they killed him.
Also,
an Igbo person.
Yeah. So that was there. Also, if you remember that when Ironsi became GOC,
head of state,
military supreme, he was hunting down these guys, including Nzeogwu.
They were all arrested.
And Nzeogwu was deceived. If he was really my person, because he was hunting down all of these guys.
Let me say, he didn't necessarily pursue them. Arresting them wasn't hard. Nzeogwu
gave himself, but he didn't know. It was based on what Ademoyaga said.
Nzeogwu he wasn't sure what was going to happen. If he wanted to run, he would have run. He wasn't sure what was going to happen.
And Madebo had pacified him.
Madebo had said, look, if you continue with this
school,
if you say you want to continue with this school, you're a major. It runs his GOC. He can call for outside support. You have the Northerners with you. Are you aware that they can switch allegiance one day?
Yes.
So I need us to think about this very critically. And just because of our time, I can see. But I would encourage everyone to read the police report. It's online.
Yes.
Just read the police report and see the varied list of people that participated in this.
It's a 20-page report.
It's a 28-page report, but it's interesting.
It's detailed.
This is not anybody. This is the police force as we know it that detailed this. Right.
So as we round up now, I want to have a conversation with you in the next 2 minutes. Why are we really doing this?
Okay.
And it's to really understand. I'm going to read what Tim Carroll said about the Diamond Corp. Understand what happened really in this country in 1966, and to understand the heroes of this nation. Of course, nobody's taking it away from the Sardauna, Sokoto at that time, Chief Obafemi Awolowo and Nnamdi Azikiwe. They are heroes. But also the coup planners, particularly in Nzeogwu. Of course, they killed people, and there is no how I'm going to support somebody that killed somebody. But looking into the story, there are certain things we can learn, particularly from the ideology of these coup planners and the life of the man Nzeogwu, which I think is some sort of lesson for us, the younger generation in this country. The dedication of these guys, the ideology, the courage that of not killing people, but the fact that we don't want repression in this country. But unfortunately, the only way they could do that was to wrest power from people by force. Again, we don't agree with that, but it's the courage, the patriotism that I have to do something about this situation. The life of committed to being upright, to a moral compass, to justice and fairness, the character of these people, and the ideology of wanting a nation that is based on merits and not just tribal representation. Why am I saying this? Walter, you see, something happened something happened in last election in this country, which I think was a big blow. Two things I will mention one, I'll not mention the other one. One was a big blow. There was a particular person, I won't mention his name. It was the governorship aspirant in Labour Party. You all know the person, quite young. And he was accused, people, they brought up this tribal card again, that we can't vote for him because his mother is Igbo. That thing, I think, sent this country back in terms of politics decades back.
I agree.
And it seems you don't learn from history, or maybe we don't even bother to even read, which, like I say about Africans, we don't read about these things to know. Americans would look at stories of people in their history that have sometimes questionable character. They will make blockbuster movies out of these people, just again to portray their image and their ideology and a narrative about their nation. That's fine. But we too, at least, should do the same. Right? So, but that card we played in 2023 about this person, his mother being Igbo, I think is one of the most shameful cards. And some people in this country didn't want to vote for that person, even because his mother is Igbo, something. I think that's terrible and shameful. It's terrible, and we don't learn from history because, in my opinion, Walter, the mother of corruption and bad leadership in this country is tribalism.
Yeah.
I realized, based on study and this story, the real issue in this country is tribalism. You're Igbo, I'm Yoruba. We became friends based on shared ideals. And your sister, who is also a very good friend of mine, shared ideas. I would even say that, in fact, so let me not say some things, but tribalism is the real issue in this country. And until we agree on certain ideals that will form our ideology as a nation, we should form an ideology based on ideals and values, not based on tribe, not based on ethnicity, not based on where you come from because you're my brother or something because we come from the same family. No, it should be based on merit, on justice, on fairness, on the right values. That's why we are doing this. Looking at the life of these majors that did this coup, of course, again, we by all means don't agree with any of the killings that they did. Nobody should do any coup in this nation. I don't agree with coup. I think if you do it, you're sending this country back decades into the Stone Age. I don't agree with coup. Protest, yes, we can protest, but coups, nothing violent. But we can learn a few things from the lives of these people, particularly on the reasons why they did these things. You know, that's why we are doing this. And I'm hoping that you and me and our friends also can learn from this and become more patriotic and in some way or the other build certain things that will last, that legacies based on justice, on fairness, on rights, on things that are true and not based on tribalism. Tribalism should end, you know, and then everything we should form an ideology based on the right values. I don't know if you have any final words.
I would just end with just talking about the character again of this person and saying that I think people should do a lot more reading. You know, I don't know how many texts I've read on this. Do I agree 100% with everything Nzeogwu did? No. Am I saying that he was a perfect human being? No. He had his flaws.
Yep.
Right? So, but I think people should do facts and what I call analytical thinking.
Yeah.
Think about it broadly. Think about it deeply.
Yeah.
Put yourself in that time.
And form an opinion.
Read widely. Read text widely. I mean, I've read, for instance, I've seen Ademoyega, for instance, talk about traveling to from Kaduna to Lagos, January 10. Madibu too said the same thing. I can deductively say this is what happened at this day, right? Tribalism doesn't take anybody anywhere. It should be more of what the merits I bring to the table and the merit fairness, like the man himself, Chukuma Nzeogwu was. What is right for this person? What's wrong? What is fair for this person? Okay. And I would also encourage our generation sincerely to. I know there's this, you know, we consume a lot. We consume a lot. I wish we can read more. I wish we can not take things hook, line, sinker. Okay? I wish we can be able to read more about people and then Nzeogwu, I mean, for instance, when they were looking for him and everything, he wasn't concerned about his car. He wasn't concerned about he was concerned about his books. His books was saying, please, this book, he was mad.
This is the character of the people.
This is somebody. Imagine
this is the character of where we come from as a nation. These are our fathers.
Do you understand?
Concerned about books, about
reading.
This is Nigeria.
His money, his properties Let them take
Yes.
it. But you see those books.
You remember
please.
Adeboyega himself started a business in prison.
Yes,
writing
as
soldiers.
as soldiers.
These are
for
revolutionaries,
newspapers.
So
Okay, I would just end. In fact,
yeah.
Nzeogwu himself died defending, thinking one Nigeria. According to what he wrote to Obasanjo, he said, "I will still build a nation. I will still build one Nigeria where there will be Hausa, where there will be Igbo, where there will be Yoruba." He always said, "If this country should degenerate, I'll pack my things and go." He talked about confederation. What I think a very senior person in this country recently talked about it. Confederation.
Yeah.
He talked about it. He said, confederation. If this country should split, and please, the interview he had with Dennis Ejindo in 1967.
Where he was speaking.
Where he was speaking about
that's something that tainted his character, because he was speaking without batting an eyelid about how they killed people.
All the people, of all the coup plotters, I'll just end with this very quickly. All the coup plotters, he was the only one that was buried honorably. The rest, nobody knows where they are.
Yeah.
And he was buried in Kaduna. I've been there. And he was buried because everybody was knowledgeable of his nationalistic heroes. Of course, he died brave. People were scared of going to war with him, So, but we end this to say, I'll just read this and then that's it.
Okay, please.
This is how Obasanjo ends about Nzeogwu. He says, "Nevertheless, Chukwuma was not by nature a violent man. He subordinated his own life to his profession. It was this ability to suppress sentiment and his tremendous willpower that determined the course of action, which he knew as obviously dangerous. But he was prepared to go through the danger in his determination to rescue Nigeria from drift and divisive politics. He played for high stakes and gambled with his own future and eventually his own life. He was a man full of life, and he obviously wanted to live a full life, but he saw no contradiction in denying others theirs when, according to him, they stood in the way of national progress." That was the irony of Patrick Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogwu.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So just to close, I remember something that was said at the platform 2023. I think it was Vusite Mekwayo. He said that what Africa needs is a group of young. To say young, okay, it's a group of people that are nationally conscious, that know about this country, that know about the continent or whatever country they represent. I'm paraphrasing now, and are committed to upholding, the values of the country and moving it forward. Just that conscious minority of people that are conscious about the nation. Thank you very much, Walter. I truly appreciate it. I think it's going to be the first of many.
Yes.
But I truly appreciate
hope so.
And thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so this is where we do the cutting.